Cosmic communication. Messages sent and received. In 1991, the United States Department of Energy embarked on a fascinating and costly endeavor, allocating approximately $1 million to a team of over a dozen linguists, scientists, and anthropologists. Their profound mission was to devise a perfect, universal symbol capable of transcending time and culture. The purpose of this symbol was to serve as an unambiguous warning about the lethal presence of nuclear waste, a message intended for civilizations thousands of years into our future. The academics behind this forward-thinking project operated under the stark realization that, over such vast timescales, our contemporary languages, alphabets, and even our most common symbols like the skull and crossbones would likely become unrecognizable, their meanings lost to the erosion of time. This very act of creating durable messages for a future, potentially alien human culture begs a profound question. If we are actively contemplating how to communicate with descendants who may possess an entirely different linguistic framework, is it not plausible that other intelligent beings somewhere else in the cosmos have already done the same, leaving their own symbolic messages for us to discover here on Earth? This question brings us to a pivotal moment in the history of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. On November 16, 1974, at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, a group of SETI pioneers, including Frank Drake and Carl Sagan, utilized the world's largest radio telescope to send a powerful transmission deep into the cosmos. Their target was M13, a dense globular cluster of stars located 25,000 light-years away. The signal they sent was a carefully coded message, a digital beacon designed to announce our existence to any potentially advanced civilizations that might be listening. The message was ingeniously encoded in binary code, the simplest mathematical language of ones and zeros. The logic was clear. When attempting to communicate with a completely unknown intelligence, the message must be as fundamentally obvious as possible. The transmission began, in essence, by teaching the recipient how to count. The very first section of the message laid out the numbers from 1 to 10 in binary format, a foundational lesson that any intelligence capable of building a radio telescope should, in theory, be able to decipher. Directly beneath this numerical primer were the atomic numbers for the 5 key elements that form the building blocks of life as we know it: hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus. The coded message continued to build upon this foundation, providing further information about the structure of our DNA, a simple stick-figure graphic of a human being, a diagram of our solar system with Earth highlighted, and finally, a graphic representing the Arecibo radio telescope itself. For decades following this cosmic broadcast, SETI scientists could only wonder if their message would ever be received, let alone answered. Then, nearly 27 years later, in August of 2001, a potential response appeared in the most unexpected of places. In a field adjacent to the Chilbolton Radio Observatory in Hampshire, England, 2 remarkable crop formations materialized. These were unlike any previously seen. Both formations were constructed in a pixelated or rasterized style, meaning their intricate patterns were only discernible from the air. One of the formations was a complex, humanoid face. The other, however, was far more astonishing. It bore an uncanny and undeniable resemblance to the Arecibo message sent out in 1974. At first glance, the 2 patterns looked nearly identical, but upon closer inspection, subtle yet profound differences emerged. These differences seemed to form a direct point-by-point answer to our original message. The depiction of the human figure we had sent was replaced with a figure that looked remarkably like the popular conception of a grey alien, complete with a large head and a small body. The diagram of our solar system was altered to show a different planetary system. Furthermore, the information detailing our DNA sequence had been modified, suggesting a different biological makeup. These 3 key changes captivated the attention of researchers. The formation was either a brilliantly executed and highly intelligent hoax, or it was a genuine message, a direct reply to the SETI transmission from the 1970s. For the crop circle community and much of the media, the conclusion was electrifying. Humanity had seemingly received a reply from the stars. While its ultimate origin and exact purpose remain a mystery, many see it as a profound confirmation that we are on the right track, communicating in what may be the universal language of the cosmos, binary code. It is a language whose modern definition is credited to the 17th century German mathematician Gottfried Leibniz, who in turn is said to have drawn his inspiration from the 5,000-year-old Chinese text, the I Ching, an ancient oracular code used for divination and communicating divine guidance. Earthly symbols and alien artifacts. The quest for extraterrestrial communication has evolved significantly since the days of beaming binary codes into space. In May of 2014, a significant publication emerged from a collaboration between NASA researchers and SETI scientists. This was a comprehensive 330-page manual titled Archaeology, Anthropology, and Interstellar Communication. Its purpose was to enlist experts from these fields in the search for evidence of alien contact, urging them to consider means and methods beyond the familiar realms of radio signals. The document explicitly singled out forms of enduring art, such as rock carvings and petroglyphs, as potential mediums for interstellar messages left on Earth in the distant past. Among the examples cited were the Neolithic petroglyphs of Northumberland, England. While the NASA document stopped short of directly attributing such ancient art to extraterrestrials, it formally proposed the possibility that these symbols could be tied to otherworldly communication. This opens a fascinating line of inquiry. Across the globe, similar petroglyphs and rock art motifs appear in cultures that supposedly had no contact with one another. We are compelled to wonder if there is a parallel phenomenon at play, a common origin for these widespread symbols. It becomes necessary to start looking at these ancient carvings and ask the fundamental questions: how did they originate, and from where? This search for physical symbolic messages leads us to a remarkable discovery made near Roswell, New Mexico. On September 4, 2004, a man named Robert Ridge was tracking deer in the desert, just 11 miles from the site of the legendary 1947 Roswell crash, when he stumbled upon a peculiar object half buried in the sand. It was a small, triangular-shaped rock, meticulously uniform in color. What made it extraordinary was a complex circular design on its surface that was not etched or carved into the rock, but rather protruded from it in raised relief. Ridge was immediately struck by its unique and special nature. The artifact, which came to be known as the Roswell Rock, measures roughly 1.5 inches thick by 2 inches wide. Upon its face, a precise pattern of circles and crescents is meticulously formed. Convinced that this intricate symbol was meant to convey a message, Ridge and others began to study the rock, soon discovering another uncanny property. It possessed powerful and unusual magnetic qualities. When a magnet is moved over its surface, the rock causes it to spin and reverse polarity in specific, repeatable ways. However, of all the strange qualities possessed by the Roswell rock, the most fascinating aspect is that the exact design protruding from its surface has also been found nearly 5,000 miles away in England. The pattern of a sun and moon enclosed within a circle is a precise match for a crop circle formation that appeared in southern England in 1996. This crop circle materialized 8 years before Robert Ridge discovered the rock, a fact that has led some skeptics to suggest the rock is merely a man-made copy, a clever hoax. Ridge himself considered this possibility, noting a friend's comment that it looked like something a hippie made and threw it out in the desert. To investigate this, the rock was subjected to rigorous scientific analysis. A 3D CAT scan revealed that the design was not painted on, nor was it an applique that had been stuck to the surface. The raised symbol is an integral part of the rock itself. The scan also confirmed it does not contain an internal magnet. Ancient astronaut theorists also argue that if the rock were a hoax, it is highly unlikely the creator would have left it half buried in the middle of a remote desert where it might never have been found. The most compelling evidence against a fabrication, however, came from a microscopic comparison between the Roswell rock and a replica created using sandblasting techniques. The microscopic details were profoundly different, convincing many researchers, including investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe, that the rock is not a man-made object. Howe is convinced that the design itself holds a message. She posits that in a universe of diverse life, certain elements must be common denominators. Moons, suns, and skies are universal baselines. She believes something is trying to teach us about astronomy and the tracking of celestial bodies, with the symbols on the rock reflecting a message about the past, present, and future. Secret societies and extraterrestrial influence. The thread of mysterious symbols woven throughout human history leads us to an influential and secretive organization, the Freemasons. In 1752, in Fredericksburg, Virginia, a 20-year-old George Washington was initiated into this society. He was in esteemed company, as his fellow members included many of America's other founding fathers, such as Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, and Paul Revere. This raises a series of profound questions. What truly is Freemasonry? What role did this secretive brotherhood play in the founding of the United States? And what hidden meanings lie behind their many enigmatic symbols? The true origins of Freemasonry are shrouded in theory and debate, but what is known for certain is that the organization rose to prominence during the Renaissance. This was an age when scholars and thinkers began to intensely study ancient civilizations, seeking any knowledge that may have been lost over the centuries. According to experts, the Freemasons champion the idea of acquiring knowledge through both scientific and spiritual means. During the Age of Enlightenment, this pursuit of knowledge naturally included the examination of one of the most profound questions of the era, the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Freemasonry arguably became the primary vehicle that transported the principles and radical ideas of the Enlightenment into the New World. Across the colonies, the most prominent citizens, merchants, politicians, and intellectuals became Freemasons, forming a powerful network where they would discuss the major issues of the day. A central topic of these discussions was the speculation about the plurality of worlds. Could this growing belief in the possibility of extraterrestrial life have influenced the Founding Fathers' vision for America? The numbers suggest a significant influence. Of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, 9 were confirmed Freemasons. Concerning the 39 signers of the Constitution, 13 of them, a clear 1/3, were members of the fraternity. This leads one to ask if the deep influence of Freemasonry explains why Masonic values seem to be woven into the very fabric of America's most important documents. Could this also explain how and why Masonic symbols are found embedded in so much of the nation's monuments and architecture, particularly in the design of Washington, D.C.? In the Capitol's layout, the language of symbols is paramount, and it is here that we see clear connections to Freemasonry. The universal symbol of the craft is the square and compass. The compass represents the individual as the sovereign center point. Drawing a circle around oneself defines one's personal domain, and venturing beyond that perimeter represents the quest for greater knowledge and light. The square is considered a symbol of wisdom and morality. The letter G, often found at the center, stands for God, or more abstractly, the grand architect of the universe. The same individuals involved in the development of modern Freemasonry were also deeply interested in ancient Egypt, inspired by its legacy of ancient wisdom. Consequently, other Masonic symbols found throughout Washington, D.C. are eerily similar to the icons of ancient Egypt, the Sphinx, the obelisk, and the pyramid. Most famously, the all-seeing eye is prominently displayed. If you were to look at a $1 bill, you would see on the reverse side the Great Seal of the United States, which features a depiction of the Great Pyramid of Giza with an all-seeing eye at its apex. This is an awesome and mystical symbol, interpreted as the eye of God watching over the nation and as a callback to the divine nature of ancient civilizations, which the Founding Fathers sought to recreate in the United States. The underlying idea is that humanity needs a source of external light to become enlightened. We cannot do it alone. For the Founding Fathers, that source was whatever is out there keeping an eye on the great American experiment. There is a belief that this venture did not happen by chance, but was guided by Providence to help the human condition make a major leap forward. Why did this group of 18th-century men who set out to build a nation on principles of logic and reason, attach such importance to pre-Christian symbols and ancient mysticism? And who, or what, did they believe was watching over them? Was it God, or was it something else? According to ancient astronaut theorists, a clue can be found in an 1866 lithograph of George Washington, which resides in the Library of Congress. In this famous Masonic portrait of Washington, over his right shoulder is an unusual depiction of Jacob's ladder ascending to heaven. In this image, the ladder seems to extend not from the heavens, but from a dark, round object emitting multicolored lights, resembling a spaceship. While Jacob's ladder is a popular Masonic symbol, it's possible this specific depiction is attempting to convey something else, something of an extraterrestrial origin. The global grid, alignments on Earth. The suggestion of a hidden, guiding influence on human history is further bolstered by a series of inexplicable patterns found in the placement of ancient sites across the globe. Consider 3 of the most mysterious places on Earth, each isolated by vast distances. Easter Island, a remote speck of land in the Pacific Ocean, lies more than 2,000 miles off the coast of Chile and is home to nearly 900 monolithic stone statues. 2,164 miles to the east, perched 7,000 feet above sea level in the Andes, are the ruins of the lost Incan city of Machu Picchu. And 10,142 miles away, on the opposite side of the world in modern-day Pakistan, lies Mohenjo-Daro, an ancient city where some ancient astronaut theorists believe a nuclear-like explosion may have occurred in the distant past. Curiously, as discovered by researcher Jim Allison, these 3 incredibly significant sites fall on a single, perfectly straight line that circles the center of the Earth. Furthermore, with only a minor margin of error, this same line also runs through a number of other mysterious and sacred ancient sites. The list of locations that fall upon this great circle is astonishing. It includes the Giza Plateau in Egypt, home of the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx. It encompasses the enigmatic Nazca Lines in Peru. It passes through Angkor Wat in Cambodia, one of the largest religious monuments in the world. All of these extraordinarily important, powerful, and sacred places were seemingly built along a single straight line. This, proponents argue, cannot possibly be an accident or a mere coincidence. The alignment also includes the ancient Sumerian city of Ur, the rock-cut ruins of Petra in Jordan, and Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of ancient Persia. Even with minute degrees of deviation, the proximity of these disparate sites to this global line is staggering. How is it possible that so many important ancient sites, spread across the globe and belonging to cultures that supposedly had no contact with one another, all follow this precise alignment? What could possibly explain this phenomenon? The implications are bizarre and revolutionary, because only a people capable of flight, or at least possessing incredibly advanced cartographic and geographic knowledge, would be able to conceive of and execute such a plan. This raises a provocative question. Could the specific points along this line have been chosen because they were, in fact, locations where our ancestors made contact with extraterrestrial visitors? There must be something fundamentally important in the location, in the geography, and in the geometry of this line that indicated to our ancestors that this was sacred ground, that these were powerful places to erect their most significant monuments. The very existence of this alignment suggests a level of planetary planning and coordination that is completely at odds with the mainstream historical understanding of our ancient past. It points towards a lost chapter of human history, one possibly involving a guiding hand with a perspective of our world that could only be achieved from above. This evidence compels us to reconsider the capabilities of ancient peoples, and to entertain the possibility that they were not as isolated or primitive as we have been led to believe. Instead, they may have been part of a global, interconnected system, the purpose and origin of which we are only now beginning to uncover. Celestial blueprints, alignments in the stars. Beyond the incredible geometric alignments found across the Earth's surface, ancient astronaut theorists say further evidence of extraterrestrial intervention can be found by looking at how early humans aligned their most important sites, not just with each other, but with the stars. One of the most famous and compelling examples of this practice is found at the Giza Plateau in Egypt. The layout of the three Great Pyramids aligns with breathtaking precision with the three belt stars of the constellation Orion. Orion's belt is composed of two bright stars in a near-perfect line, with a third, dimmer star that is slightly offset to the left. This celestial arrangement is mirrored exactly on the ground at Giza. Two large pyramids are in alignment, with a third, smaller pyramid offset in precisely the same manner. It appears as though the builder's intention was to create a mirror image of the stars on the ground, a concept often referred to as above, so below. Remarkably, this specific celestial alignment is not unique to Egypt. The same pattern, mirroring Orion's belt, is found in the layout of the ancient city of Teotihuacan in central Mexico, particularly in the placement of the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. It is also found in the arrangement of ancient Hopi villages in the American Southwest, and in the Thornborough Henges, a Neolithic landscape complex in northern England. Could it be merely a coincidence that so many ancient cultures throughout the world, which presumably had no contact with each other, all chose to build their most important and sacred sites by using the same celestial alignment? Mainstream explanations often falter when confronted with this global pattern. This is not something that can be easily explained away as a coincidence. Many researchers believe it is time for us to responsibly analyze what we are really seeing and to understand that there may be a worldwide, intelligent, and highly mathematically precise plan behind these ancient designs. The idea that not only the structure of ancient buildings but also their specific placement on the planet is encoded with complex information is a fascinating concept, and one that we are only just beginning to comprehend. Another intriguing motif that we find repeated throughout the ancient world is that of intertwined serpents, a symbol that looks remarkably like the double helix structure of a DNA strand. This symbol can be found in depictions of the ancient Sumerian god Ningishzida and in the caduceus staff of the Greek god Hermes. One of the most interesting examples of this symbol was found in southern Portugal. While investigating the mystery of Atlantis, researchers met with author Peter Doré, who led them to the Lagos Museum to see a giant, 6-foot-long stone egg. Some experts believe this artifact could be as much as 7,000 years old. On the top of this egg is a mysterious carving, a central rod-like feature which throughout history has been a symbol of power and creation. Moses had a rod, and in Mesopotamia the rod was a symbol of the power of the gods, is flanked by what strongly resembles a double helix. This is particularly interesting because the ancient astronaut theory suggests that a long time ago, advanced extraterrestrials recognized the potential for intelligent life on Earth. Through a targeted mutation, combining our genes with theirs, they may have accelerated our evolution, essentially helping us become who we are today. The recurring DNA-like symbol across multiple ancient cultures could be an artifact of this profound story of our origins, a symbolic signature left by our creators. The Alaskan Enigma, the Dark Pyramid and Project Stargate. Alaska, the largest of all U.S. states, is a land of vast, uninhabited wilderness, home to the nation's highest peak, its biggest national park, and more coastline than all other states combined. For ancient astronaut theorists, this dense and remote landscape conceals a multitude of mysteries and perhaps even an active extraterrestrial presence. Within this region, an incredible amount of strange phenomena takes place. There are reports of paranormal activity, the appearance of strange cryptids and otherworldly monsters, as well as frequent manifestations of UFOs and mysterious lights. A significant portion of this activity is concentrated in a large area that has become known as the Alaska Triangle. Roughly defined by the points of Anchorage, Juneau, and Barrow, this region runs more or less along the border of the Canadian Territories and the state of Alaska. The Alaska Triangle can be likened to the more famous Bermuda Triangle, a place where truly strange things happen, seemingly without rational explanation, and where numerous aircraft and people have vanished without a trace. Within this region of anomalous activity stands Mount Hayes, one of Alaska's tallest peaks, and a place where UFO sightings are reported with extraordinary frequency. Many people, including pilots and local residents, have witnessed UFOs, flying saucers, and strange lights maneuvering in and around Mount Hayes. There is no road that leads up the mountain. The only way to get close is by air, a journey most people do not make. So what are these craft that are so often seen flying around this remote peak? For decades, eyewitness testimony was the only evidence to support the notion that Mount Hayes was a UFO hotspot. However, in 1995, declassified CIA documents revealed a startling fact. Mount Hayes had been the focus of a top-secret government project called Stargate. Researchers sifting through these documents found evidence of a clandestine project centered on what lies underneath Mount Hayes. They reported seeing written in these official records that there was actually an alien underground base located in this area. This shocking revelation was compounded by another, seemingly related discovery that occurred in 1992. U.S. geologists were monitoring seismic data following an underground nuclear explosion on the Lop Nor test range in western China. The shockwaves traveling through the Earth were recorded by sensitive seismometers, which revealed unexpected geological anomalies under the ground just north of Anchorage, Alaska. These scans detected a colossal pyramidal object buried deep beneath the surface, about 130 miles southwest of Mount Hayes, near Mount Denali, then known as Mount McKinley. This structure, which has become known as the Dark Pyramid, is described as a massive pyramidal object. Seismic instruments revealed that its top lies 150 feet below the ground, and it stands an incredible 550 feet tall, making it nearly twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is said to be made of a black, stone-like material. Investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe has spent years researching the Dark Pyramid and has interviewed several people who claim to have inside information. One key witness was a man who claimed his father, a skilled electronic engineer for Western Electric, had actually been inside the structure. According to The Sun, his father was assigned to a special project in Alaska that involved monitoring a huge underground object that was putting out a tremendous amount of energy. The father described being taken to a large freight elevator sticking out of the ground, which descended deep into the earth. At the bottom, it opened up into a complex of rooms and offices. He was informed that they were at the base of a gigantic pyramid, and that their job was to monitor the immense energy it was emitting. The father told his son that the energy coming out of this pyramid was enough to power the entire country of Canada. Many believe there is a massive cover-up surrounding this pyramid, perhaps to hide a truth that would force us to completely rewrite the science of human origins. The concept that a global industrialized civilization with technology superior to our own existed in the distant past. Remote viewing and eyewitness accounts in the last frontier. The astounding reference to an extraterrestrial base beneath Mount Hayes, found within official CIA documents from Project Stargate, becomes even more intriguing when one examines how this information was obtained. According to the declassified files, the existence of this alien facility was gleaned not through conventional intelligence gathering, but through a top-secret experimental investigation technique called remote viewing. Remote viewing was a psychic projection technique utilized by the CIA throughout the Cold War. It involves a viewer who, from one location, can supposedly project their consciousness to a different place on the Earth's surface, enabling them to see what is happening there. The specific purpose of Project Stargate was to use these remote viewers, who were essentially psychic spies, to gather information on what the Soviets and other adversaries were up to. The most famous and reportedly most accurate remote viewer to emerge from the Stargate project was a man named Pat Price. It was Price who first reported what he believed to be an alien base under Mount Hayes. His method involved sitting down and drawing what he saw in his mind's eye, and he was known for being deadly accurate in his predictions. On one occasion, Pat Price remote viewed Mount Hayes and perceived complex structures, tubes, and tunnels deep beneath the mountain. Intrigued, he focused his attention deeper. Price reported seeing what he described as geographical instrumentation and advanced computers within the mountain. He also described strange humanoid creatures working inside the base alongside human personnel, whom he believed were members of the military. After this session, Price began to fear that he had seen something he was not supposed to see. He confided in friends that his remote viewing of the secret base under Mount Hayes had put him in grave danger. Shortly thereafter, while checking into the Stardust Hotel in Las Vegas, someone deliberately bumped into him, and he felt a sharp pain in his leg. That evening, he started to feel unwell. The following morning, he suffered convulsions and died. What makes his death particularly strange is that the hospital allegedly did not notify his wife and had his body cremated with unusual haste. It is fair and reasonable to ask if Pat Price's mysterious death is part of a long lineage of similar tragic deaths of whistleblowers who step out of line. Decades later, incredible eyewitness testimony from the same region lends further credence to the idea of anomalous activity. Pilot Theo Chesley, with 35 years and 15,000 hours of flight time in Alaska, reported one of the most significant UFO sightings in recent history. In October 2019, while flying northeast of a volcano, he and his passenger spotted a horizontal, disc-shaped object in the sky. As they flew closer, the disc turned vertical and came to a complete stop, parking itself near the mountain. It held its shape perfectly, unlike a smoke ring or cloud. Then, a second object flew directly out of the mountain. Simultaneously, a green orb appeared at a lower spot on the volcano's side. Suddenly, a third object flew into the stationary vertical sphere, pulling it out of shape. Given that they first spotted the object from 40-50 miles away, Chesley estimated it had to be at least half a mile wide. 6 months later, flying solo in a different aircraft, Chesley had a second occurrence. In a perfectly clear sky, a huge cloud formation instantly appeared near the volcano, with a black object visible inside it. The most disturbing part of this encounter was that his aircraft, flying on autopilot, was twice pulled off its designated course and began heading directly toward the mountain. He had to disengage the autopilot and hand-fly the aircraft to regain control. This suggests some powerful localized magnetic force was interfering with his navigation systems, a phenomenon reminiscent of stories from the Bermuda Triangle and perhaps connected to the decades-long mystery of planes vanishing in Alaska. The magnetism of the ancients, stoneheads as data storage. In June of 2019, a team of researchers from prestigious institutions including MIT, Harvard, and Yale announced a groundbreaking discovery. They had found unusual and powerful magnetic anomalies within the colossal stone heads attributed to the Monte Alto culture, a Mesoamerican civilization that emerged around 1800 BC. The creators of these statues were not only aware of these magnetic fields, but had deliberately incorporated them into their work. This finding shocked modern archaeologists, as it suggested that this supposedly primitive culture was aware of magnetism and actually selected specific rocks because of their magnetic properties. A similar phenomenon was found in Mexico, where intricately carved heads created by the Olmec civilization were also found to emit magnetic anomalies. These sculptures vary in height from nearly 5 feet to over 11 feet tall, with the largest weighing an estimated 50 tons. Like the Monte Alto sculptures, most of these heads were carved from basalt. Basalt is a volcanic rock that contains large quantities of iron and magnesium, which can give it magnetic properties. What is astonishing is that the Olmecs were so precise in their knowledge of these magnetic fields that they actually carved the facial features of the statues around these natural anomalies. When scientists use a magnetometer to scan the stone heads, they find that the magnetic fields are strongest in specific areas, such as the nose, the cheeks, and around the chin. The logistical challenges of creating these heads are immense. They are made of basalt, a very dense, heavy, and thick rock. The closest source for the basalt used for many of these heads is located up to 100 miles away from where they were discovered. This raises the question of transportation. Furthermore, basalt is incredibly difficult to work with, especially with rudimentary tools. It ranks higher on the Mohs scale of hardness than flint, the material supposedly used to carve them. It is difficult to understand how such intricate detail could have been achieved. This has led researchers to question the choice of material. With these stone giants, was the selection of rocks like granite and basalt purely for artistic reasons, or was it technological? Granite is very crystalline and electrically conductive. Basalt is volcanic and can be highly magnetic. Were they specifically choosing these types of rock for their physical properties? As we look at how ancient peoples were selecting certain stones that were magnetic or possessed certain energetic properties, we have to wonder how they could have known about these qualities. Is it possible they were receiving this information from an extraterrestrial source? Ancient astronaut theorists propose a radical answer. These giant heads were not merely sculptures, but were intended to be used for data storage. In 2017, IBM announced a huge breakthrough, figuring out how to store 201 gigabytes of data on a single square inch of magnetic tape. This means a tape reel the size of your palm can hold as much data as 330 laptops. Magnetic stripe tape is made of very tiny magnetic particles adhered to a thin strip. The technology works by aligning these microscopic metal filings into specific patterns, much like the grooves on a record. A corresponding piece of equipment can then read how those particles are aligned and interpret the data. We still use this technology today for large-scale backup data storage. This modern parallel leads us to ask, could these ancient statues have been, in effect, devices? Could they have had information recorded onto them, which could then be extracted, similar to a computer hard drive? Most people don't realize when they're looking at ancient artwork that the creators may have understood concepts like magnetic fields. Perhaps there is a technology at play that we no longer understand. We have been looking at these objects primarily at the macroscopic level, what they look like. But maybe there is information encoded inside them at a microscopic or even nanotechnological level. This is not as far-fetched as it sounds. As we ourselves search for ways to store information for thousands or millions of years, we are turning to the same kinds of durable physical materials and solutions that hypothetical ancient aliens may have also figured out how to use. Colossal statues and cosmic energy. In March of 1813, Swiss explorer Johann Burckhardt was traveling north along the Nile River in southern Egypt when he came across 3 massive stone heads protruding from the sand. 4 years later, a thorough excavation revealed a spectacular 200-year-old temple complex. Now known as the Abu Simbel temples, the site contains some of the largest and most impressive stone statues ever constructed in the ancient world. In 1244 BC, the Egyptians, under the reign of Rameses the Great, carved this incredible temple directly into the side of a mountain. The 4 seated statues of the pharaoh at the entrance are colossal, standing 64 feet tall. For the ancient Egyptians who would visit Abu Simbel, these statues served a powerful purpose. They would see their king, their pharaoh, represented as a great godlike being in his ultimate perfection. People would understand that their king was, in fact, a god incarnate on earth. The temple also features a remarkable solar alignment. Twice a year, on February 22nd and October 22nd, the first rays of the dawning sun pass through the temple entrance. The light travels 185 feet through a great hall lined with more stone giants, and for 20 minutes, shines directly upon the carved statues of the Egyptian gods Amun-Ra-Horakhti and the deified pharaoh Rameses II located in the innermost sanctuary. According to ancient astronaut theorists, these colossal stone statues served more than just an artistic or political purpose. That purpose, they suggest, centers around the idea that these massive figures are transmitters. They were utilized as a mechanism for drawing down cosmic energies and forces, which could then be emitted into the surrounding area for a specific function. The question that arises is whether these cosmic vibrations were used merely in a symbolic, religious sense, or if they served a more tangible, technological purpose. While the ancient Egyptian notion of stone statues possessing energy is regarded by mainstream scholars as purely symbolic, ancient astronaut theorists believe it was meant to be taken literally. They suggest that evidence for this can be found by examining similar ideas held by other civilizations throughout the ancient world. In a number of ancient societies, people associated large statues with a living energy. They believed the statues were alive, possessed a consciousness, and held real power. Some of the best-known giant statues in the world are the Moai heads found on Easter Island. These monoliths were believed by the Easter Islanders to be conductive mechanisms for drawing down mana, a form of spiritual power or life force. A similar idea may have been at play at sites like Copan in Honduras, and possibly even at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, suggesting a global belief that colossal stone statues are more than just inert representations. Is it possible that ancient stone statues found throughout the world were built to serve a technological function? While the idea may sound far-fetched, geologists point out that stone is not as lifeless as it might appear. Rocks and human beings are made of the same fundamental thing: matter. And all matter vibrates. It all has a frequency and an energy. When you look at a rock, it's not just a plain, inanimate object. It contains tons of different types of minerals, like ingredients in a recipe, that give it unique properties. Some stones feel warm, some feel cold, and others have a distinct presence about them. This primordial quality of stonework deeply resonated with the ancients. This brings us to Sardinia, a Mediterranean island rife with myths of a race of giants who once lived there. These myths were seemingly substantiated in 1979 when, during an excavation of Nuragic ruins, workers reportedly dug up multiple skeletons of giants, ranging from 9 to 12 feet tall. According to witnesses, the bones would be taken into the local church and then disappear overnight. This has led to speculation that physical evidence of giants is being deliberately hidden or censored. For ancient astronaut theorists, Sardinia is another piece of a global puzzle. The incredible megalithic structures, the persistent stories of giants, and the statues that appear to depict them all point to a single conclusion: our ancestors were visited by the same otherworldly teachers. The mystery of the spheres. A global phenomenon. Across the ancient world, we find mysterious monolithic monuments carved from solid stone, such as the obelisks of ancient Egypt, the Karnak alignments in northern France, and the Moai statues of Easter Island. The purpose they served has long been the subject of intense speculation, but perhaps the most enigmatic monoliths of all are those that are in the shape of perfect spheres. Stone spheres are a global phenomenon, found on every continent except perhaps Antarctica. It is important to note that geologists are still very much in debate about how geological spheres form naturally. Some are clearly natural formations, but many others are so perfectly shaped that they must have been carved by the hands of intelligent beings. From the giant Meraki boulders in New Zealand to the stone balls of Kansas and Kazan, Russia, we find these spheres. Some of them are massive, taller than a person. The key thing that links all of them is the profound mystery surrounding their creation. How were they made? Why were they made? And ultimately, what was their purpose? While many of the ancient stone spheres are of enormous proportions, they exist in a vast range of sizes. Experts agree that many of them show clear evidence of having been artificially shaped. This begs the question: what purpose did they serve? One theory suggests that ancient peoples might have been constructing these spheres to mimic what they observed in nature. There is a geometrical perfection inherent in the sphere. This could represent a connection to the planets, the sun, the moon, and the stars, all of which are spherical. If you look deeper, at the microscopic and atomic levels, you find the same patterns of spheres as fundamental building blocks of the universe. This fascination with spheres might be a reflection of this deep, underlying principle of cosmic geometry. What could explain why ancient people all over the world, supposedly without contact, independently chose to fashion spheres out of stone? Perhaps further clues can be found by examining a discovery made deep in the jungles of Central America that continues to defy explanation. In 1939, in southwest Costa Rica, workers with the United Fruit Company were clearing dense rainforest near the Diquís Delta to make way for a new banana plantation. As they worked, they began to find dozens of giant stone spheres. They had no idea why they were there, and their instructions were simply to move anything they found out of the way. But the spheres just kept appearing. In 1943, the archaeological journal American Antiquity published photos of the mysterious spheres, which caught the attention of American archaeologist Dr. Samuel Lothrop. 5 years later, Dr. Lothrop led an excavation of the area and discovered hundreds of them. They range in size from just a few inches to more than 6 feet in diameter and weigh up to 15 tons. Archaeologists soon found stone spheres throughout the Diquís Delta, and on the nearby Isla del Caño. Many were found alongside artifacts from the ancient indigenous Diquis culture and are believed to be at least 1,000 years old. Around 300 have been discovered so far, some with intricate carvings of spirals and what look like ships. They appear as if they were created in a machine. Researchers believe the stone they are carved from, a granitic rock called granodiorite, is not local to the Diquis Delta, but was transported from a quarry located more than 50 miles away, across difficult jungle terrain with creeks, mountains, and dense vegetation. Just as puzzling as how they were moved is how they were made. Archaeologists believe the Diquis civilization carved the spheres with simple stone tools, but many researchers argue that creating such a precise shape would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, without advanced technology. Granitic rocks are very hard, and to achieve such a perfect spherical shape, a modern stonemason would use diamond saws and polishing equipment. Since the United Fruit Company moved most of the spheres from their original locations, we don't know their original arrangement. What if we could see their exact placement? Would they show a pattern, a constellation map, or a design like the Nazca lines, only visible from above? Local legend offers a different explanation. The spheres were created by Terra, the god of thunder, who used a magical blowpipe to shoot them out to push back hurricanes. Ancient astronaut theorists see a kernel of truth in this legend, a classic example of misunderstood technology. Perhaps the spheres themselves never descended from the sky, but our ancestors witnessed the appearance of spherical craft belonging to the extraterrestrials who visited us thousands of years ago, and these perfect stones are their calling card.